with little Andrew being only 2 months old. He advises Christine to hang in there a few more months until she finished the 8th grade before being moved to Washington, D.C. Okay. 3 p.m. JR and Ken walk into the reception area of the hotel in the middle and see Brad at the technology reception desk for the NFB convention, talking to Bob Roberts. He turns to JR with that smug look. You know, JR, if you could dump that dink pad your father helped get you and get a power book like Bob Roberts, you'd be styling. Kim escorts JR back into the suite because he could tell that JR was very angry. How dare he make fun of a fine piece of machinery my daddy got me? That's quite a way to double-cross a Hendrick. Just another member of the upchuck turd crowd, JR said, laying down on the couch. Forget Brad, Ken said. Of all the old gang from prep school, JR, you were the nicest one. 6 p.m. Eastern. Jim is in his office listening to the Blake Carter show when Carter makes this pronouncement. Once again, Bill Clinton is up to his tricks. He doesn't show his face that much after Whitewater and leaving Detroit, but today he shows up in the old executive office building to sign the Bosnian agreement. Honestly, when his domestic policy analyst May Walker's back is turned, he whips out the foreign policy to cover up his tracks. 6 p.m. Central. Jim Bob arrives at the hotel suite at the Majestic. And begin the Hendrick party dining of Jack Jordan's barbecue, being catered on request of JR's grandmother, Elizabeth. The first convention session would take place at 7 o'clock with breakout session beginning. JR and Ken would go to the blind students session, but Jim Bob would go to the blind industrial workers of Texas to give his input, being that he had a bachelor's in psychology and was now working on a master's in economics.
Playing from Galaxy S20 5G.
Get over here. March 19th, 5:15 a.m. Eastern. Jim is sitting in the front living room of the mansion, praying and thinking himself relieved that he has a day off. 6:55 a.m. Eastern. Jim exits the chapel. Scotty Underwood greets him in the hallway. "Come on, Scotty, let's go swimming," Jim said. "Oh, hell yeah," Scotty said. "Let's go." 7 a.m. Eastern. Jim and Scotty are in the basement swimming pool. Jim's planned workout was to be the 300 freestyle. Like JR, he had been on the swim team for Odessa High School, whereas JR was a star freestyle swimmer for Reese Prep School. 7:25 a.m. Eastern. Jim and Scotty exit the elevator. "It's been a good time," Scotty said. "Stay for breakfast." "Oh, friends don't contact me that much no more," Jim said. They walked to the main living room, where Jim smoked a cigarette. Scotty tells Jim that his girlfriend broke off with him. Scotty was considering staying in Washington and asking to be legal counsel for some of the Republican majority. 6:30 a.m. Central. Betsy wakes up feeling lonely. Last night she learned that her grandson Thomas would not be visiting until June. Tomorrow, her plan was to ask Jim and Betsy if she could stay in the Hendrick condo in Lubbock to keep an eye out on JR until he had finished with his semester. 8:30 a.m. Eastern. In Great Falls, Jim, Betsy, and Scotty Underwood are having sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits. Betsy has some 70s music playing in the background. 8 a.m. Central. JR and Ken and Jim Bob are having breakfast in the hotel restaurant. At 9 a.m. was to begin the first full session of the convention. Meanwhile, an hour ahead in Washington, D.C., Jim is saying goodbye to Scotty Underwood. He drives off to his mansion in Virginia. 9:15 a.m. The NFB of Texas State Convention is underway. The keynote speaker is the state affiliate president, James Kennedy. Kennedy had been an affiliate president since 1988, and now he was announcing that he was stepping down due to health concerns. 1:30 p.m. Central. After a lunch of Texas burger, the group goes back into the afternoon session of the NFB of Texas convention, where one of the main issues dealt with was students' rights issues. JR took special interest, being that he was studying public affairs. At the same time, an hour ahead in Washington, D.C., Jim had tried to call Claude with no results. He is beginning to resent his own request to live once again in Washington, D.C. 3:30 p.m. Central. At the last leg of the Saturday afternoon convention, Mike Harmon, a motivational advocacy speaker for the blind, is giving his speech, motivating people to push for necessary reforms in vocational rehabilitation. JR and Jim Bob took copious notes. Okay, 7 p.m. Central. The NFB of Texas banquet is in full swing. Debbie, Ken's new girlfriend, showed up at the banquet. Dinner was New York strip steak, baked potatoes, and asparagus. At the banquet, scholarships were being awarded. The main one going out to Stephanie Powers, a sophomore from Amarillo. 8 p.m. Central. With other conventioners, while other conventioners are dancing the night away, JR, Ken, and Jim Bob are playing dice and talking politics with one of Jim Bob's friends from the Texas School for the Blind, Trevor Wallace. He worked in the Lighthouse for the Blind in Austin and had a common bond with Jim Bob. There were plenty of laughs and good times despite JR's heartburn and acid reflux. March 20th, 3:19 a.m. Eastern. Jim wakes up early. He decides that he is done with Claude until maybe the Easter barbecue. 4:30 a.m. Central. After working out about an hour in the basement, Jim goes into the home chapel to pray, confessing his sins and reading his Bible. 6:07 a.m. Eastern. In the home chapel, Jim takes out his King James Bible and starts reading it again. Bessie sits beside him. "You seemed kind of restless last night. What's wrong?" Bessie asked. "Claude. He's too busy with Becky to talk to me now," Jim said. "Let me talk to Becky. In the meantime, maybe we can have the pastor over for dinner tonight again." "Anything beats sitting in this empty ash house." "We can make this better. Look, in a couple of years, you'll be out of your appointment, and you can sell this house, and we can return to the ranch in Gainesville, Texas for good." "I don't know why I even wanted this appointment with Clinton. Brings us to a higher status scheme. That's all that matters." 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Betsy asked the cook to make French toast for the breakfast today. Church would start in 2 hours. And so Betsy wanted to make things more comfortable and available to Jim. He was already dressed in suit and tie, ready for church. 9:10 a.m. Central. The final session of the NFB Texas Convention is in full swing. With the ballots cast, the elections called for